Hey, it's April 15th, 2012, and tax day across America. We got a 48-hour reprieve because it falls on a Sunday. Um, but I feel like I gotta say something. Um, I feel like I'm gonna bust if I don't, and I imagine there's a lot of people out there that can relate. I really did not want to make this video this morning, but I feel an obligation. I feel a compelled commission to chirp in, and it's a very American thing to take advantage of your right of free speech and to say what you got to say, whatever it may be, And in regard to taxes, I want to say this, that the entire system is a scam from A to Z, the entire system. Okay? Yeah, the taxes are a scam. And I don't like to support that scam. And I know a lot of you are the same way. But it's like Alex Jones says. He says you got to pick your battles. And, and it kind of goes back to what Jesus taught when he was confronted with this issue about paying taxes, he and his disciples. Reluctantly, because they didn't want to, but they didn't want to offend the people extracting the tax. So he pulled a little miracle, and he pulled the gold coin out of the fish's mouth. And, I wish it was that easy for all of us, but it's not. And, you don't have to pay your taxes, but then, you're going to have to deal with the IRS and all the hassle with the paperwork and back and forth. And, it's like a traffic ticket. A lot of tickets you might be able to argue under the basic speed law, which is it's safe to drive as fast as it's safe, period, you cannot drive any faster than it is safe, okay? It's just a logical, common sense understanding of speed laws. Sometimes the posted speed limit is too fast if the conditions are wrong. So it's just a common sense thing. You got to know basic things about physics to understand these things, but we all have that instinctively. And but the hassle of going to court back and forth and all that, it might cost you more and be more of a headache than it's worth, and it's like that with taxes. So I'm not recommending people just, willy-nilly stop paying their taxes. If we could get an organized movement, at least help people to understand why you're opposed to taxes. I mean, look at all the things our taxes are being spent on and all the things are not being spent on. I mean, in a time in America when there's more of a need for welfare, social welfare programs to help people because we've allowed these banksters to wreck up the joint. Okay, that's what happened, not capitalism. But in a time when we need these programs more than ever, they're being cut. Okay, this is ridiculous. And, they're spending money on these wars that most people don't want. And they're bailing out these bankers that most people don't want. So all the stuff our tax dollars are being spent on that we don't want them spent on. But that's not stopping the problem, is that we've got an ongoing situation where we're just being looted right and left. It doesn't matter why things cost too much. It's too expensive to live. There's too much burden, whether it be from taxation or the cost of living. The fact is, it feels the same. It creates a sense of fear. Economic insecurity is a sense of, it's a type of fear, okay? And none of us should have to fear anybody but God, okay? The one that owns you. He created you. He owns your soul, rightfully. It's like the relationship between the pottery and the potter. Okay, so we're all owned only by one, and we are all equally loved. No favoritism, equal rights. That's what the spirit of good is. It's all about equality and fairness and justice and all good things rolled up in one. Every good characteristic, quality, and attribute God is the source of. Good is the source of. It's all good. You know, you could define good and evil as good and bad. You know, I'd like to point out the fact that your soul is like your integrity. Okay, it's that quality within you that is not for sale. If I asked you to pick up a can for $5, you'd probably do it. I'd probably do it. If I asked you to pick up some gum on the floor for $10, you'd probably do it. There's a billion things we do for money. But we have our boundaries. If somebody asks you to go kill somebody for any amount of money, you're not going to do it. Okay, it's just, that's your integrity, your soul. You can't be bought. You have your limit. And this is something you get to keep. That's a quality within you. Nobody can take from you. The tax man can't take from you. A burglar or a robber can't take from you. Not even death of a physical body can take from you. Okay, that's true. You can feel it in your bones, in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit, your mind. Okay, you have the same access to the spirit that owns this universe, this indescribably awesome existence that we're sharing with each other and with the universe. Okay, the idea that there's higher beings, how hard should that be for us to believe? And that would help you to understand why the secrecy surrounding this issue. Take UFOs. Again, I talk about UFOs a lot. But if it was understood that these were simply evolved, let's say, higher beings or created for a different purpose, they were far more powerful, far more enlightened, far more evolved, whatever you want to call it, they were advanced beings. We weren't them, they aren't us. But they're on a much higher plane. But they are God's way to interact on this earth and to impose His will, which is eventually coming. And we all need to get prepared for a big change. And yes, it's going to be tough for a while. It's going to be very tough. But that change is coming. And it goes to science. What Isaac Newton taught. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. Well, for decades, America's been in decline. I'd say that since the assassination of JFK, we had a banking, military industry, let's say, coup d'etat, okay? And we haven't had a president with the kind of courage it took to stand up to these bankers the way JFK did since then. And nobody's willing to rock the boat. Today, America goes along to get along. Too many establishmentarians, status quo, wannabe status quo, and actual status quo. Okay, our country is in big trouble. Too many people are invested in the stock market. I understand last time I looked, about 65% are vested in the stock market through these 401ks and whatnot. So they think they have an interest in not rocking the boat. They don't get it. They don't care that there's so many people suffering in this country, needlessly suffering. That's the kick in the teeth for me. Okay, it's the needless suffering. And that's what economic oppression is. It's needless suffering. Okay? We're a situation where you've got plenty of everything for everybody. Okay? But the problem is, it's unaffordable. You've got price fixing. That's what's taking place. It's not free market supply and demand economics that cause this problem. If you define capitalism as the free market, supply and demand, it's not that. It's price fixing. Look up the term. It has to do with collusion. Different groups of people, individuals, that have an interest in a particular commodity. Let's take housing. They have an interest in high housing costs. Then what they can do, if there's not rules preventing them, they manipulate the markets. They get the prices high through various means. I talked to a banker locally here who told me of a guy that came into town here in Northern California, Chico, and he paid twice the going rate for a house. For example, you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house selling for $100,000 one day. Virtually overnight, the house is worth mysteriously $200,000. That's the new appraisal the banks are handing out. That's the new comparable the real estate companies are giving you. Do you understand how outrageous that is? Do you understand what that does to the poor? How that causes rents to double as well? Because the investors get involved, they borrow money from the banks, so they're all rubbing elbows, all these investors, the landlords, property management, all these people have an interest in high housing prices, okay? They're all making more money. But what about the rest of us? Okay, it's a miserable, oppressive situation. And my whole life I've had to watch this happening, so I know something good is around the corner because the people are waking up. They're not tolerating this. The light of truth is coming, and it's exposing the darkness that doesn't want you to understand these things. It's what I call the Babylon factor. As long as people are confused about the big picture here, then they are effectively deceived. They're disempowered. And you got to see the big picture. Cut to the chase. Keep it simple. Okay, you're born on a planet, and you have as much right to share in this planet's goodies. Not only the inherent natural resources, but also the infrastructure. All the progress that's been made, all the factories and stuff coming out of the factory, that belongs to the labor class the most. Look into a book called The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, where he clearly points out that the greatest asset of any nation is labor, because nothing gets done without labor. The gold doesn't come out of the mine, the silver doesn't come out of the mine, the houses don't get built, the lawns don't get mowed, the bridges don't get built, the factories don't get built, the stuff in the factories doesn't get built. Nothing gets done without labor. Your garbage doesn't get picked up, your water won't run, your electricity doesn't work. It's often common, uneducated labor that are doing the most important jobs, and we've been far too willing to subjugate these people. Take the farm workers, for example. Here in California, we say, well, you know, most people would reason, maybe not out loud, but they, you know, they're brown people, you know, hard luck immigrants, you know. It's okay that they take these jobs and we allow them to be cheated out of a living wage, you know. But that's bad for everybody. Karmically, that's bad. Okay, that can't, look, you cannot not care about your fellow man, whatever color, creed, nationality, whatever he is, okay, without hurting yourself. It's going to come back on you. You know, you've got to make a deliberate, intentional effort to be a decent human being. And, you know, you've just got to get on your knees and say, God, please help me to understand these things. To cut to the chase, because it's too convoluted, it's too complicated, it's too confusing to understand the minutiae, you know, the integral details of the economic problems. People will say it's because we had you know, the interest rates were too low, or it's because of derivatives and credit default swaps and all these things. Look, keep it simple. The wealth of the nation belongs to all of us. Why isn't the bank nationalized? You wonder why JFK was hated by the banksters? I'll tell you why. Go back to what the Rockefeller quote. Competition is a sin. Okay? And what JFK did, he had these silver notes printed, and the American people, it was their currency of choice. They liked it. They liked spending currency. It looked a lot like a dollar, but it was backed by silver. And it was going to render the Federal Reserve notes irrelevant. And they weren't having that. Okay, do you understand what happened here? All right. So we've got a serious situation, and we've got to confront it, or, you know, we're just going to go down the tubes more and more. And it is being confronted. And I'm not only reminding everybody out there, but I'm reminding myself. I'm preaching to the choir, because I know that the good is not only coming, but it's here. The internet is a huge tool, a huge weapon in the arsenal for good. It's exposing the dark forces. It's really showing everybody clearly and concisely the kind of people we're up against, the battle we are up against.